Hey everyone, welcome to Premier Present Show. This is Ryan Giffen. I have an internationally acclaimed author and educator, Marc Prensky. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you.
Mark, you have some exciting new things coming out. This whole year has been a year of new materials, what some would say mind-boggling content. Your newest book, help me with this, Brain Gain, is the book
Brain
releasing
gain,
in August.
technology, and the quest for digital wisdom.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I started reading all the books that said technology is bad for us, technology hurts our kids, technology is making us worse or stupider or any of these things, and it didn't seem to me to be the case. Technology is really enhancing us. It's really helping us. It always has done that sort of thing. And we need to understand how it's doing that so that we can use it to its best
Mhm.
advantage.
What about this book and how it approaches the use, the teachers and their roles to some would say change? How is this book going to be different from other perspectives of other thought leaders in your area?
Well, a lot of people are shouting at teachers and others and educators to change. And what I say is slightly different. I say what you have to understand is that the context has changed. We live in a different world. We live in a human machine world
Mhm.
now. And rather than say change, which nobody likes to do, what I ask people to do is adapt. And the reason that's good is because everybody knows how to adapt.
Good.
Everybody, every time you buy a new house, every time you buy a new car, every time you get a new job, you adapt to it. And so humans are good at that. And that's what we all have to do to the context in which we live if we are going to prepare our kids for that context and the context of the future.
What are some things that you are specifically touting to teachers to adapt to? What are some of the things that when you go into an event, whether it's a room full of educators that are going back to the classroom the next day, or administrators that are having to implement adaptations and change, if you will, what are some of those things that you are encouraging them to adapt to?
Well, I try to be as practical as I can, and I always leave people with practical suggestions that they can use the next day. Of those, to me, the most powerful is to listen carefully to the kids and what they think and what they need,
Hmm.
and especially to find out what their passions are and teach through those passions. Individualize and personalize your instruction through the individual passions of the kids. My sense is that if every teacher in every classroom, when they go back into the classroom, took 15 minutes to go around the room and say to each kid, what is your passion? And then they wrote it down and acted on it. Our education would take huge leaps overnight.
Hmm. You've been a very busy person. In January, you released a book entitled From Digital Natives to Digital Wisdom. Why the change to digital wisdom?
Well, the concept of digital natives and digital immigrants is now over a decade old.
Hmm.
And while that was, and for some people continues to be an important distinction so that we understand our kids better, it also causes some friction because people say I'm in one camp or another and I can't go into the other, which is not true. So what I think is we're all moving to something new. We're all moving to something, a new kind of person, and I call it in fancy terms Homo sapien digital, or the digitally wise person, where you have to be not just wise, but digital as well.
Mm.
And the reason for that is because it's easy to be digitally dumb. The kids who download papers from the internet and turn them in with the other person's name still on them, which actually happens. I hear this from lots of teachers. Those kids are being digitally dumb. And both students and teachers, we all have to do the opposite, become digitally wise. We need to search for digital wisdom.
You shoot straight, that's for sure, Mark. What when you go into an event, one of the most popular topics that we've had with groups, and I find most interesting, is engage me or enrage me. It kind of has a context of you have to reach them or they're not going to respond. Tell us a little bit about that topic and what you share with educators and administrators as you're speaking.
Well, I didn't even invent that term. It came from a friend of mine who is a teacher and an educator and who did what I do. Look around at the kids, and if they're not engaged, they start acting out. They are enraged. They're not happy. When school feels like prison, when school feels like it's not meeting their needs, which are real needs, even intellectually, especially intellectually, then they get upset and they get angry, and being kids, they act out.
You're a very entrepreneurial mind, a thought leader. You are a founder and the CEO of Games to Train. How are those efforts changing education?
Well, we see much more technology coming into education. And the concern that I have about that, while I build some of it and I think games and other things are fantastic, I'm very concerned that we don't put in the technology without thinking about why we're using it. And so I recommend that people spend time doing what I call imaducation. Before you buy the technology, spend a year asking in every class the question, if we had laptops, if we had phones or iPads, what would we do differently to enhance our education? And when you collect all those ideas from teachers and students and you put them together, then you're in a position to use the technology. If you don't do that, what happens is that you buy the technology, you spend the years figuring out how you're going to use it, and by the time you do, it's obsolete.
Times, technology and times change very quickly. So,
They do.
in America, there are always issues from the bottom up, from the top down, wherever it may be. What do you think is the one clear issue that has to be changed in America in order for us to regain the top seed, if you will, in the education world?
Well, I think we have to really think hard about the future. And if we try to just improve the education of the past, we're not going to get very far. And as an example, I use the following. When I went to school, which was 50 years ago, I learned to write letters, reports, and essays. And they were very useful, and I got very good at it. Well, a kid who goes to work today doesn't do any of those. They'll write emails, they'll do PowerPoints, they'll write on blogs. So some people say, let's teach that, and that's not bad. But if you think about a decade from now when the kids are going to be out there, we're not going to see those either. We're going to see people working in virtual communities. We're going to see a lot more video communication. We're going to see programming of the various machines. And those are the things that we should be teaching today.
Well, I don't see how video communication has any relevance, especially to this conversation. Absolutely, it's going to be something of the future, that's for sure. Any last...
The way we learn. It's become the way we communicate. Sure. And people who are not comfortable with that, which includes, of course, unfortunately, many of our adults and teachers, need to become comfortable with that.
Well, leave us with a thought of wisdom as we depart here, Mark. What is your thought of wisdom for America and their education?
I would say, please don't blame anybody. It's not the teacher's fault. It's not the parents' fault. It's not the administrator's fault. It's not the politician's fault. And it certainly is not the student's fault. It's the fault of the context. That's what's changed, and that's what we need to adapt to with digital wisdom.
Mark, you're an incredible forward thinker. You're an education thought leader, entrepreneur. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to bring you into their event. And for the events that we've booked you for, you've been extremely successful and have got nothing but rave reviews. Thank you for your time, and we wish you the best of luck for the release of Brain Gain, which comes out in August. So click on the link below that we have right here and go buy Brain Gain starting August 7th.
My pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Mark.